Ruggiero, thank you. And thank you for being in the building again. This is good for us. Rep. Hull and Mayor Lombardi is here. Colonel Connor, as well as Colonel Weaver, thank you. And of course, our Lieutenant Governor is here as well. And I see I'll let the Senate President and the Speaker recognize our reps and senators that are in front of us here, but I know that this has been something that's very important to all the members of the General Assembly and to me. And that's why when in the State of the State address, I made a point to bring something to the table here on the LEOBOR issue. The collaboration and the action on LEOBOR reform was central to getting this work done, and the group that helped get this legislation across the line deserves a real round of applause. Let's give them a round of applause. And I know that this tracks back many years. I've been in this building more than a few years as Lieutenant Governor as well, and saw that the Senate started talking back in 2020, and the House has been right there too in terms of the discussions all along. So I know that it has been a time frame where, and I've said this for years, that it is really an important moment in time for us where we bring the community and the police together, and the police and the community together. And as a former mayor, like Charlie is a mayor today, we know that our public safety is integral in terms of the three most important things that a community can have. In public safety, people need to know that they're safe. And so the chiefs that are in the room here, we salute you and we thank you for your leadership, and please deliver that back to your respective communities. Today's bill delivers the transparency that has been called for, while still safeguarding officers' right to the process. It expands both the number and scope of members who sit on the hearing committees to include a retired judge and an attorney appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It also makes sure that the 3 law enforcement officers who sit on this committee have had proper training in the disciplinary action. Once I sign this legislation into law, police chiefs and municipal leaders will be more able to comment publicly on cases of alleged misconduct as they resolve themselves in their communities. And those same leaders will also have more tools to hold their departments accountable, and that's what the public wants. But at the same moment in time, I want to just repeat, this is a moment in time to bring our communities and our police together, and our police and our communities together. I have a picture in the office of former Chief John Pottington, who always reminded me of that story, and I think that it's one that I carry forward here as governor. Law enforcement officers have some of the hardest jobs around, and it has not been made easier over the last few years. They put themselves on the line to ensure our safety, and we are indebted to their service and to their families who serve with them. I believe that the vast majority of officers welcome the transparency in their work that they do. I liken it to the cams, right? To the fact that this protects our officers on their conduct. When you swear to uphold the law, accountability is already second nature. And having worked with the local chiefs as a mayor, lieutenant governor, now governor, I know that that's to be true. So it is a really good moment for us in this state. And I want to congratulate everybody who has actually brought this to a reality, and I look forward to signing the legislation. But first of all, Speaker Sakachi, come on up to the platform. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Always a joyous event to be in the room, the state room, and this time of year, to me, always signals that we're coming to an end, so it's good. And finally, LEOBOR is coming to an end, or shall I say the LEOBOR Odyssey will end today as the governor signs this. And, success has a lot of fathers and a lot of people to give credit to, and in this case, there certainly is a lot. I certainly want to recognize people from the House side who've been instrumental and worked hard, and that certainly starts with Deputy Speaker Ray Hull, who you'll hear from earlier, who brought a very unique perspective as an African-American police officer and someone who has been on the street his entire career. He understands all sides of this issue. And to Tom Naray, who's a retired police officer, I think, if I'm not mistaken, when Tom came into the House, this was the first bill he introduced 4 years ago. And he continued to work hard and has been an integral part of this. And of course, my good friend, the Senate President. And I want to compliment him, and I want to compliment the Senate, and I want to compliment in two ways, because it was critically important to get this legislation through. They did a study commission several years ago that brought everybody together. I think it was the first time everybody actually sat in the room together and worked on recommendations that was the basis for a bill that they passed last year. And I want to thank my good friend, the President, who's been very instrumental in working not only with me, but with everybody on this issue, and the Senate as a whole, who came in this year and passed the bill. And that gave us in the House a template to work from. And I don't know if she's here, but I don't really compliment staff, but I want to compliment Danica Iacquay, Majority Leader Blazajewski's legal counsel, who worked tirelessly all summer long when we had meetings, when we brought in advocates, we brought in the 2 police unions, and the League of Cities and Towns, and the police chiefs, and everybody and together in the room to work for a basis that not everybody loves. Let's not remember, not everybody loves this legislation, but I think everybody can live with it. And I think where we are today and where we will be when the governor signs that piece of legislation momentarily will be in a much better place as a community, as a state, as understanding each and every one of us. And this bill was only about 2 things. It was about accountability and transparency. We wanted to make sure it was fair. We wanted to make sure it was constitutional. We wanted to make sure that this was a product that everybody who was involved in could be proud of. And I stand here today humbly before you and say from the House, we are extremely proud of this legislation. And I thank everybody who worked here. I want to certainly also recognize Chairman Corvese, who is a key player in my leadership team, and Representative Boylan as well, who are here from the House. Very hard-working individuals who had a keen interest in this. The late Dan Beardsley, for 39 years, tried to reform or change or amend or modify LEOBOR. And he said, I think, toward the end of his career when he retired, it will never be done. Well, Dan, as much as I love you and respect you and you're not with us anymore, we got it done, and I'm happy and proud of that. Today's bill signing is a culmination of 2 years of work done in the House, as well as many other years of work in the Senate. This was a monumental task, and it's quite an achievement for the General Assembly to do this. This legislation provides greater transparency, accountability, and due process. It was a compromise on all parties to come to the table. I want to thank the police unions, the police chiefs, the advocates, and everyone who weighed in. It's been decades since we've been able to address police misconduct in such a meaningful and substantial way. We recognize the important work law enforcement does every day in our communities, and we know their jobs are not easy. However, the status quo is not acceptable. This legislation creates a framework to address police misconduct, and I'm incredibly proud of the product before us today. I want to thank Deputy Speaker Hull, Tom Naray, who brought their law enforcement expertise and legislative skills to understanding this issue and crafting a piece of legislation that could work. It's not easy to pass legislation like this because everybody has to give up something. But in the end, when you give up something, you get a lot, and we get a lot with this legislation. Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to introduce Senator Dawn Oyer, who will be speaking on behalf of the Senate. Chairwoman Oyer from the the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Governor. It's really an honor to be here today speaking on behalf of the Senate. I want to begin really by commending the Senate President Ruggiero, for his steadfast commitment and outstanding leadership on this issue. His support through this process really made an enormous difference. His dedication from moving on from an unacceptable status quo and finding a way forward is one of the primary reasons we are here today. I also want to commend the members of the Senate and our staff for their hard work and support. Today we have Whip Val Lawson, Senator Takoyan, Senator John Burke, and Senator Matt LaMountain are here. Between the leadership team and the members of the Judiciary Committee, did an incredible amount of work on this legislation in trying to get it across the finish line early in the session, this session, so that we could send it over to the House so that they could do their work on it. I also want to thank and recognize Governor Dan McKee, Speaker Shekarchi, House Deputy Speaker Ray Hull, North Providence Mayor Charles Lombardi, and the League of Cities and Towns, who also put in so much time and work, Warwick Police Colonel Bradford Connor, and the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association, Sid Wardell. There's so many stakeholders and partners who came to the table and have been really involved and invaluable in this effort. This legislation represents historic action on a major piece of unfinished business. It's really the product of many, many years of hard work. I also want to take a moment to specifically recognize former Senator Harold Metz. After the murder of George Floyd and the uprisings around that incident, Senator Metz knew that action needed to be taken. And he led a study commission starting in 2020 to study LEOBOR reform. He knew how important it was to talk about this issue, to address it, to bring accountability, transparency, and restore public trust in light of the conversations that were happening nationally. Because of the work that he did on that commission and the bringing together of so many stakeholders, that is really what provided the framework for this bill. I'm so proud and extremely grateful that so many important elements of the Senate legislation is preserved and made its way through to the final product. As was mentioned, the independent commission of officers that will get training and guidance on how to adjudicate these cases, a public record opportunity so that, again, the public can see and view and understand the cases, so that way it's not left in the dark and the public can have trust and confidence in the process as it unfolds. This legislation includes sensible, meaningful reforms that will enhance transparency and accountability. It also continues to recognize the unique challenges that police officers face and what they do every day to keep our communities safe. I believe this legislation strikes a reasonable and a responsible balance. It's a critical step to restore the public trust, and it will help ensure those who are accused of breaking that trust are held accountable, and that folks can have an understanding of how those cases play out in the public eye. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to have worked with everyone on this critical piece of legislation, and I couldn't be prouder to be here representing the Senate. And with that, I would like to introduce Representative Ray Hull.
What more can I say? Thank you, my distinguished colleagues from government, my distinguished colleagues in law enforcement. It's a long time coming, because I can remember in times how bad it was on my community, the police. But most importantly, I am so proud to be here to effectively see it change the law, transparency, and accountability. I thank the Speaker for assigning me the task, Representative Norray for being there as my right-hand man, and also to the community who didn't let up. We didn't abandon you, and some people may say that it didn't go far enough. I will tell you, in the 30 years that I've been in law enforcement active, I've been a community cop all my life. To effectively see this change in this legislation, it's a new era. It's a new era, but the product is living and breathing. Doesn't mean it stays stale for the next 30 years. It means it can change and function and live in a community. This is why I was so grateful to get onto this bill and to see the changes that are necessary for the betterment of the community. I've thanked all my community, my colleagues, but now I owe a thanks to the community for setting me on the path to continue and to do what is right. Thank you very much.
Mayor Charlie Lombardi.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to be here this afternoon. On behalf of all the mayors, managers, and administrators, we'd like to thank Governor McKee, Speaker Shikachi, my senator, Senate President Ruggiero, police chiefs, all of our officers for working so hard to reach consensus on meaningful reforms to the Law Officers' Bill of Rights. We addressed some serious flaws in the system and improved transparency. This, in our opinion, will increase trust among members of our communities. But more importantly, we want to thank the honorable and professional officers for their service to their communities. For several years, municipal leaders have studied and advocated for revisions to this Bill of Rights in order to ensure due process, accountability, transparency. I want to make it perfectly clear. The overwhelming majority of our law enforcement officers are decent, honorable, and professional, and we are grateful for their services. I can't thank the Police Chiefs Association, led by Police Chief Connor from Warwick, for leading the efforts to reach this consensus for sessional law enforcement. So on behalf of all the 39 cities and towns, we thank the honorable professional officers for their service to our communities. The days of the ranking police officer, police chief, or colonels not being able to manage their departments is over. Thank you very much, and for the invitation to be here. Thank you. So, Chief Connor, you're up.
Good afternoon. I want to thank Governor McKee for his swift signage of this bill and our legislative leaders and their staff for working so hard to bring this legislation forward. We are grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with legislative leaders, union leaders, and community advocates on this bill and to have a true voice in the legislative process. This has been a long road and has given me a new appreciation for the work, the great work that our policymakers do. The Law Enforcement Due Process, Accountability, and Transparency Act outlines the process by which officers are disciplined for violations of department policies. Changes made to the former Bill of Rights will now allow the disciplinary process to be more transparent and provide chiefs with the ability to discuss the charges, particularly in those cases involving the use of deadly force, excessive force, felonious conduct, and professional dishonesty. These revisions will help us build public trust by allowing us more latitude to discipline for these infractions and to speak out to keep the public informed. As leaders in the communities, public trust is the most important tool we have. It helps keep our officers safe and lets the people in our community know that we're working in their best interest. To echo what Mayor Lombardi just said, let's be clear. The vast majority of Rhode Island law enforcement officers conduct themselves with the utmost professionalism and integrity, working day in and day out to protect and serve the people of Rhode Island. Unfortunately, we have seen rare instances when a police officer needs to be disciplined or even terminated. This new law will provide a more appropriate mechanism to achieve that end. Again, I want to thank our bill sponsor, Representative Hull, as well as Speaker Shikarchi and Senate President Ruggiero for their efforts to move this piece of legislation over the goal line for Governor McKee's signature. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the governor for the signature.
Yep, we're good. We can invite everybody over to the, if you'd like to come on over, we'll sign the piece of legislation. Thank you for your leadership. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I think this does bring community and police and community together.
Absolutely.
I think that's
I hope so.
That's the goal.
I know there are other elected officials and police chiefs in the audience. If you would like to be in the picture, feel free to join us.
Okay. Good. So you can hold this up, Rep, as the House bill, and I will sign the Senate bill. Senator Order, would you hold on to that? There's two. And Mayor Lombardi, is the mayor around here? My gosh. Mayor, good job there, and Rep Norek, where's Rep? Right there, Rep. Thank you so much. Yes, so that's good. Congratulations.
Look over here.
Yes.
No pictures. And two. Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Good to see you. Governor. Governor, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So I can see.
Oh, are these the? We need you. They call her.